Kindred UMC live show features adults discussing adult topics, occasionally with adult language. It may not be suitable for young viewers. Please use discretion before watching. Hello all! Welcome once again to the Kindred UMC live show, coming to you not live, but pre-recorded from my front room, aka Kindred Studio A. My name is Chris Hayden. I am the pastor.
Hi, I'm Courtney Young, and I am the Director of Community Engagement at Kindred UMC.
And I'm Preston.
Can you hurry it up? We've got a time limit.
And I appreciate enunciation.
There you go.
If you don't get the joke, watch last week's.
Figure it out.
Then figure it out, you dummy.
I thought we were being mean.
No.
Wow.
What?
I flicked you both off. It was beautiful.
Oh no, I can't blur that out. I don't know how to. I'm not that good at Premiere.
That's why.
That's okay. I have the warning at the beginning.
It's in Ezekiel.
I told you. Occasionally, maybe I should put in adult gestures also. Yes, this week we are continuing our several week, because I can't remember how many weeks we're doing it. Several week series called InVulnerable. And it's not about being invulnerable, it's about being into vulnerability. Invulnerable. And this week we're going to be looking at the words of the big man himself, Jesus Christos, the Messiah, from the Gospel of Luke. And so here we go. Luke chapter 6, verses 27 through 36. They sound like this. But I say to you that listen. He's giving a sermon on the Mount.
Okay.
But I say to you that listen, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you, and if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. It was 31, sorry, not 36. Other Gospels have him say something along the lines of, "You have heard it said, but I say to you." You've heard it said, love your neighbor, hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemy. So, first of all, let's talk about enemies. Do you have any enemies? And name them now. No, no, don't use anybody's name.
Stevens. Okay.
Please don't use anybody's name.
Sorry, John.
There are definitely people that frustrate me. Yes.
Okay, so I think this is an important thing because when we say the word enemies, and especially if we read it biblically, I think most people have the reaction of like, What? The Chinese government? What do you mean enemies?
Have you been on Twitter?
Russia? Like, what are you talking about?
I think you and I are less versed in this though, with social media over here. I think with like new modern enemies.
This gesture.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. You are more like in tuned. I don't know if you're too with Twitter, but like the comment world.
Well, okay, so this is what I mean. I actually think there are plenty of enemies out there. We just don't call them enemies because that's a little more dramatic. It's more biblical.
No, I know.
You know?
But I was going for, people are creating them for themselves to have some kind of purpose.
Oh,
which is weird.
Yeah, that's true.
Very weird.
Yeah. So here's the thing.
Like your boss doesn't hate you. You are just a part of the job here.
Yeah.
But it seems like.
But I do think there's something about the application of the term enemy.
Yeah.
To, I mean, we don't really ever do that unless we're thinking about like a war or something.
Or a human. It doesn't necessarily have to be a human.
Well, but that's what I think we should broaden for the purposes of this text and the interpretation of this text, we should broaden the word enemy to think about exactly what you're talking about. People who maybe aren't our enemies, but like that Karen who just keeps on like that kind of, like, maybe not your enemy. Like so here's my example. In the house we lived in before this house, we were subject to an HOA, as we are in this neighborhood, but this neighborhood seems to be like kind of cool about it. They're like, hey man, you need to mow your grass. Can you get on that? Versus the other HOA, which is like, there's a dark spot in your lawn and we need you to, and we happen to live next door to the HOA president. Oh. Which is like,
Hill's house, yeah.
God, some bad luck, because I'm not allowed to use other words. And I remember he was like spraying his lawn for weeds or something, and he was like, kind of passive aggressively, like, hey, do you want me to spray your lawn for weeds? Because I'm out here doing it. And I was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And then he proceeded to kill the entire side of the lawn. Killed it.
Oh, industrial strength.
Down to, just, it turned brown within a week, and then it was like complete dirt within the month. And then we got a letter from the HOA about our yard being bad. And I was like, yeah, your president killed it. Like, that guy was my enemy. Like, it wasn't my enemy. I don't know anything about him.
It's like an 80s,
but he was my enemy.
Like an 80s neighbor.
Yeah. And so I actually, because I was preaching in a different church, and this text came up in the rotation of like what we were preaching, or what I was preaching on, and I remember having to really think about and being confronted with, I think I have an enemy. Like, I think I have a real modern day enemy. So, all that to say, return to the question, who are your enemies?
You had something before this. I was wondering if you remembered.
I did. I cut you off a lot.
Yeah. I don't know. I get very frustrated by people that come to me and ask me for help or advice. I get frustrated by two kinds of people. The first, people that come to me and ask for help and advice, and I offer it to them, and then they don't do anything that I suggested, don't take any practical action, but still want to come and complain to me about the same things.
Okay.
That really bothers me.
Yeah.
And I also get frustrated, I was talking about this with a friend today, when, like, I have all the grace in the world for when people make mistakes, because I make a lot of mistakes, but my thing is, when you make a mistake, like, take ownership for the mistake you made. And so when people, like, deflect and don't actually, like, be like, I'm so sorry, like, that really bothers me.
Okay. So this is helpful because I actually don't think that would fall under the category of enemies in this particular context.
Cool.
And here's why. I think in order to, again, for the purposes of this text, we're strictly focusing on interpreting the word enemy in this text. I think we have to focus on somebody who, either by intention or not, is actually causing harm or strife, is doing something against you in some way.
Then I would say probably my dad at one point was my enemy.
Yeah.
And still kind of can be.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it a lot, but my mom comes to mind in my childhood.
My parents are great.
Get out. You don't belong here.
No. You have no strife.
And I think about, I'll be vague because I don't want to cause any more problems, but relatively recently, somebody who I was talking with, having a conversation with them, it was definitely like an antagonistic conversation, but I continued to check in with them about how they were feeling. I was like, by the way, I'm having fun with this. Are you having fun with this? If you're not having fun with this, we can stop. I don't want to cause any problems. I certainly want you to feel comfortable and be okay. Like, oh yeah, let's keep going. And then the next day proceeded to just completely trash my entire like persona and reputation to people who didn't necessarily know me, but whom I had met and have some kind of a loose affiliation with. And that's been kind of a thorn in my side ever since, is because even though I was checking in with this person, then this person proceeded to be like, hey, you're that guy over there, your pastor's a real terrible, so-and-so, Now, I again, it's very dramatic to say that person's my enemy. I don't bear any ill will against that person. I don't mean it that way. But there's something about like that person at some point crossed a threshold from I'm making a new friend to I want to cause problems for that person and I'm going to do it in this way. There's something really hard about this calling when you actually think about people who really in your life have gone out of their way in some way to cause pain, struggle, hardship, and this calling to love them. I mean, talk about vulnerability, you know? Like, and I'm, you know, I often joke, I'm a professional Christian, and this one, every time this idea comes up, because it comes up multiple times in the teachings of Christ, like he's pretty big on this one actually. Like this is maybe is among the hardest things for me to follow, and I don't know how to do it well. So help. Like what does that make you think of? The idea of, so first of all, with that new understanding of enemy, does anyone else come to mind? I mean, like you mentioned your dad at one point in your life. Like, does that solidify anybody in your head? You don't have to name them because I don't want to.
No, I'm perfect. No, a lot of exes, so like ex girlfriends and ex like work places.
Dude, exes are hard to love.
Yeah, unless you're like
easy to be in love with.
Yeah.
Hard to love.
But I mean, even I say that with a grain of salt because I was more of the benefactor in relationships.
Yeah.
So I broke up with or whatever. So it ended up being me like, whenever you want to be friends again, let me know. And then they're heartbroken and want to stab me and blah, blah.
I remember so the girl that I was dating before I met my wife, or actually I met my wife while I was dating her, but we didn't start dating until after. Anyway, she, you know, like I believed that I was in love with her. I did. I loved her, and we said I love you to each other, and at some point, I had to face the reality that even though I loved her, and I think she loved, that was kind of part of the problem. I wasn't sure, but that the behaviors that she could not stop herself from doing. We often talk about coping and defense mechanisms. Her subconscious coping and defense mechanisms, in my opinion, you know, again, I'm sure if you talk to her, you get a different opinion, you get a different like side of things. I don't mean to say that my side is the only side, but her defense mechanisms were harming me. Like I couldn't, and I remember again, this is why this one is so hard. Because she, you know, not to say she was my enemy, but her behavior was harming me. And as much as I wanted to like stay in the relationship because I liked her and I liked being around her, except for when she was harming me, you know, like as much as I wanted that to work, I remember being like, okay, I think the most loving thing to do here is to end this. And not loving for her, but also loving for me. Like the only way that I can see through this to love her and love me at the same time is to end this relationship and for us to just not be in each other's lives. I just don't think we're good for each other. And I can say specifically, I know for a fact she's not good for me, you know, like, but I also don't, I think I bring out her coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms too. So I don't think I'm good for her. Like, and it was one, and I don't mean to say like, oh, be like me because I'm so mature. But I do want to lift this up because it was one of the moments in my life where I really felt like my faith and my maturity came through and guided me in a place that I would have really, really had a lot more difficult living if I didn't have my faith and if I didn't have the growth that God had guided me through in my life. And it was this element. It was this idea of like, how do you love the person that's harming you? And how do you love yourself? Because those two things are necessarily interwoven. It's not so. And I think that's an important thing to say too. This is not an invitation to become a doormat. This idea of love your enemy is not oh, just roll over. No, the idea here is do not treat your enemy with the same contempt or harmful intention that you believe they are treating you with. And instead, find a way to take care of both of you. And it's hard and painful and costly.
And not sexy.
Not at all.
It's not attractive. Not literally attractive, but it's not, like Hollywood doesn't promote, they promote revenge, get it out. If someone hits you, you hit them back.
Yeah, there's something.
Them.
There's a cathartic kind of idea about, oh man, if I could just destroy my enemies. And I would say also there's something in our like kind of our economic system that's about competition and finding your enemy and defeating your enemy. Sports is sports is like an inherently entertaining idea because we find an opponent and we defeat them or we lose to them, and in the end you have like a cathartic release. But it doesn't work like that in real life. It just doesn't. When somebody insults you, and then you want to like hit them, if you give in to that, it's worse. It really, really does make things worse.
Yeah. Not only is it legally not okay?
Yeah. Obviously, it's against the law and unethical and immoral.
Having a few experiences, it doesn't help. There's no release after you're done. There's no like
it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, there's no follow through. It continues.
And I think that might be so like I do martial arts and I go to a boxing, or I did martial arts and I go to a boxing gym. There is something very cathartic about competing with somebody in a sparring thing. But in my experience, all of those types of like environments really focus on the camaraderie. We're not trying to harm each other. We're trying to test each other. We're trying to like push each other. We're trying to grow each other, and it's fun. And that's why it's really important to have like stupid little rituals like we touch gloves, and like in Taekwondo, if you down somebody, you help them up. Like it was trained. It was like part of it, because the cathartic kind of the temptation that cathartic release about like destroying your opponent and defeating your enemy can be really, really detrimental on a soul level, especially in the long term.
So then what's the shift? Why do we like to see, again, this is kind of picking on you, why do we like to see the bird's eye view of the situation? Is it like some confirmation of, oh, I'm not there, so I'm good to go here. I don't have to deal with that. But when they do it, and whoever wins.
Watching the conflict unfold when we don't have any skin in the game.
Are you talking about like The Bachelor?
Kinda, but more like.
Okay, I'll answer that question. Why I like to watch The Bachelor is because that's a healthy way for me to channel this desire that I have to be involved in drama and watch drama unfold that isn't actively harmful.
But so what's that inherent desire to watch the drama unfold? Because everyone has it in one form or another. We all like entertainment. We all read books. Right. We all watch movies. We all we like to watch a conflict between two opponents. Sports is like
it's mindless. It's not something I have to actively engage in. It's funny a lot of the time. It's something I can talk about with other people that watch the same show.
Yeah, I don't think that's getting at it though. Like I'm more talking about the deeper desire. It's the deeper desire for observing the conflict.
Like when my dad watches Braveheart or Godfather, and you hear, that.
Get him.
What is that? I'm like, if you were there, you would not do the same thing.
Yeah,
at all.
I don't have a prepared answer because I didn't anticipate that question. But shooting from the hip, I would say there's something about like I fall back on kind of the Joseph Campbell anthropological stuff, like why every society throughout history seems to tell a similar story over and over again. I think there is something about watching people overcome an adversary that is representative of the internal conflict within all of us that is us overcoming our, in modern language, us overcoming our coping mechanisms and the things that we have built up that actually squash us. They helped it in the moment, and now they're squashing us and preventing us from living our full lives. And so when we watch like Braveheart and we see, a folk hero overcoming an oppressive king, one, that's just an inherently human, interesting story, especially if it's based in reality like that one is. But also it's representative of every person's journey in their own humanity to overcome the oppressive tendencies that seem to run our own lives and to seem to like subconsciously control our behavior. And it seems like a losing battle, and it seems like we're not going to do, but almost every great story has a moment where the hero dies, and we have to die to something in order to overcome it. I think that, one of the most exciting football games I ever saw was the New York Giants Super Bowl against the Patriots. Yeah. It was the best because the Giants had lost. There's no way they could have won. And they were up against a much more a stronger team. Right, exactly. Just a stronger, smarter, perfect team. Just Tom Brady and the Patriots and Bill Belichick. It was just this incredible, and they were down, and the Giants were losing, and they were down. And then in this one miraculous play, so they had lost. They were dead. The game's over. And in this one miraculous play, young David Eli Manning against Goliath Patriots, finds a way to keep it alive and comes back from the dead and wins the game. And that's every time I watch football, I'm hoping for that. That's what I want. And I think that's what people want. It's representative of this story inside of us that naturally plays out in every human life. We want to experience that narrative. And I think that's what happens in the turnaround. Anyway, we're out of time. We ended up kind of diverging from the original topic, but that's okay. That's why we do a panel. It's fun. All right. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.